everyone, this is Sidra, and today we'll be doing a video on histology. So this is just an introductory video. Histology, just to remind you, is microanatomy, and we'll be talking about some of the basic tissues that make up the human body. There's 4 basic tissues that make up the human body in its entirety, starting with epithelial, which is what we'll be talking about today, muscular, nervous, and connective tissue. So epi means surface, and this type of tissue is important in protection, absorption, filtration, transport, secretion, and even sensation. Epithelial tissue can be classified in various different ways. It forms the lining of our body, so both the inner and the outer lining. And our outer lining obviously is the skin, and our inner lining is the mucosa, which is found in GI, resp, and reproductive tracts. So anywhere where protection is required, it's there. Lining of the tubes, such as the cardiovascular system, is called endothelium, and surfaces are lined by mesothelium, which protects the organs from friction. So epithelium is arranged in sheets or layers. If there's a single sheet, it's called simple epithelium. It's 1 cell thick. And if there's more than 1 layer, it's called stratified or compound epithelium. Glands in the body are also made up of epithelial tissue, and this is just epithelium that was forming the lining and then started going deeper into the connective tissue and got specialized to secrete substances. Exocrine glands are glands that retain their connecting duct while being embedded into the connective tissue, and endocrine glands are the ones that have lost this duct. Epithelial tissue can also be classified based on the morphology of the cells. So you can have flat cells, which are called squamous. Squamous means scales, so think of scales of a fish. They can be cuboidal, so almost square-shaped, and columnar, which are tall epithelial cells. Epithelial tissue has certain attributes which make it special, such as having a high mitotic rate. They renew at a fast rate. For example, the GI tract lining renews itself every 5 days, whereas the skin might renew itself every month or so. They're also avascular, which means that the blood supply is actually in the connective tissue and these cells are getting their nutrients by diffusion. They're all situated on a basement membrane, and they're all very close together. There's hardly any intercellular material between them, and that's what helps them form this protective barrier. Epithelial cells have a basal surface which lies on the basement membrane, an apical surface which is towards the lumen or the outside world, and 2 lateral surfaces which are in close opposition to different cells. These surfaces have various modifications which help the epithelial cells do their function. Starting from the top, let's talk about the apical modifications, which include microvilli, stereocilia, and cilia. Out of these, microvilli and stereocilia are non-motile, whereas cilia are motile, and this is an important thing to remember because it makes them different in function. Both microvilli and stereocilia have an actin core, whereas cilia has a molecular motor which helps it move with the use of ATP. Under the microscope, cells containing microvilli look like they're forming a brush border, and the purpose of microvilli is to increase surface area, which ultimately helps it in absorption in the GI tract and in nephrons. Important thing to remember about microvilli, they might be covered in glycocalyx, which helps trap the nutrients before they can absorb them, especially in the GI tract. Stereocilia are tall and they act together as a paintbrush, again, to absorb. They look like cilia but act like villi, which is why it might be prudent to call them stereovilli. They're found in the epididymis and in the inner ear, where they act as sensory transducers, and of course in the epididymis they help in absorption. Remember, cilia are motile, which makes their primary function that of transport. They're found in fallopian tubes and in the respiratory tract. In the fallopian tubes, they transport the ovum, and in the respiratory tract, they transport mucus, which has collected foreign bodies, and cough it out. There's multiple lateral modifications that help these cells to remain in close apposition to each other, and this disallows any paracellular movement into the connective tissue below. There's the zonula occludentes, which are also known as tight junctions, and these are the topmost modification that we have. They're kind of like Velcro, which help the cells to stick together at the top. Then we have the Zonula Adherence, which are the intermediate junctions, and again they act as the secondary layer of Velcro, keeping the cells together. Since the main function of epithelium is to form a protective barrier, it's really important that there's no space between two adjacent cells, because otherwise bacteria and viruses will be able to get into the connective tissue and into the bloodstream. Next we have Macula Adherence, which are little buttons which hold the bottom part of the cell together, and at the very bottom, protected from outside influence, there are desmosomes, also known as gap junctions, which the cells use to communicate with each other and allow selective diffusion. It's important to know all of this because there are certain bacteria that attack these proteins and get into our bloodstream. There's also autoimmune conditions such as pemphigus vulgaris, where the body attacks desmosomes. Let's talk about the basal modifications, the most important of which is the basement membrane. This is the membrane on which all of the epithelial cells are lined, and it consists of two parts, namely the basal lamina and the lamina reticularis. Basal lamina is secreted by the epithelial cells, and it consists of further two parts, which are the zona lucida, consisting of integrins, laminins, and entactins, as well as type 4 collagen and fibronectin, which form the zona densa. This is based on what they look like under the microscope. The lamina reticularis is secreted by the connective tissue cells, namely the fibroblasts, and this consists of type 7 and type 3 collagen. The function of the type 7 collagen is to keep the type 4 and the type 3 collagen bound together. Lastly, we have the focal adhesions and the hemidesmosomes, which are thumbtacks that kind of push the epithelial cells onto the basement membrane and have them joined up. This was part 1 of epithelial tissue. Part 2 and part 3 will be uploaded soon. I hope this was helpful. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and share this video. I'll see you next time.